Welcome, everyone, to the RNC FlashPoint Live, coming to you from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Listen, so much is happening here. We've had a full day of what's going on, and we're going to share it with you. We're going to talk a lot about the shooting from Saturday, and we're going to talk about, we're going to talk just about everything that has to do with the election. So you don't want to miss a minute of it. In fact, right now, I want to give you a quick overlook of what's already happening today. There's stuff going on in the main arena, and we're going to show you some of that in just a minute. But watch this quick recap of what happened day one of the RNC. July 13th, 2024 was another day in America's history that will long be remembered, not because of something good that happened, but because of another attempted assassination. Not since the 80s with Ronald Reagan have we seen this happen in our nation's history. Back then, there were no cell phones. So now we're starting to see all of this come to light, different angles and footage. What about the Secret Service? How is President Trump doing? Where do we go from here? All of this is something that you and I must continue to push for transparency, not only in the media, but transparency in government. And that brings us to today. And that's why we're here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at the Republican National Convention. Earlier today, I think we had some B-roll of JD Vance showed and walked through the crowd, didn't really address anybody after he was announced as vice president. What do you think of this pick? What do you think of JD?
I think it's a great pick, and I think it is because of his background, of his upbringing, of the struggles that he went through. And what was really interesting to me is that some of the union bosses, or at least one, I believe it was from the Teamsters, came out and was thrilled with this pick. And generally, unions are not aligned with the Republican Party
Not at all.
But the people that the Trump campaign is trying to appeal to are the working class men and women in this Rust Belt and these crucial states that historically have gone Democrat just because their union bosses have told them to. But now, because of this populist expansion, especially into the economic portions of the downtrodden U.S. members in these flyover states, that is now in play. And so by roping him in with his story and his upbringing, I think it is appealing to this group of people that have not normally gone for Republicans, but would under Trump and Vance.
Well, and let's talk about, you talk about Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio. These are all, and that's going to, of course, he's from Ohio, but this is a great appeal.
Yeah, and I have not had the chance to read his book yet, but my wife is going through it right now. She's telling me some of the struggles he had growing up. His family was deep in the opioid pandemic or in a drug crisis. His mother was addicted, trying to hold down jobs, examining every life of these forgotten states and the men and women that originally, I think, by and large, came out to support Donald Trump because he appealed to the forgotten men and women of America, the ones that generally have not fallen in line with Republicans or Democrats, and no one's really appealed to him. It's also interesting to see this cultural shift. The Democrats always said they were the party of the working people and that the Republicans were the country club, upper elites, permanent Washington. That dynamic has drastically shifted. Wow, absolutely. And now it appeals the Republican Party to these folks that probably have never gotten involved in politics before, and the evidence for that is the turnout and the enthusiasm and support you see in places like Detroit and in the Bronx and in these places that Republicans.
And that was during horrible, things as a communication director you would want your
no, and there are Democrats who are running larger races than local races that would give their left arm for a fraction of the turnout that Donald Trump is having in these deep blue states where their constituency is supposed to reside.
Oh, that's amazing. All right, do we have Mike Garofalo? Let's go back in. Let me check it one more time with Mike before we go off the air. And let's get a report from him and talk about what's coming up in tomorrow. Mike?
Hey, Gene. We just heard from Tim Scott a few minutes ago. Glenn Youngkin after him. And tomorrow, of course, the crime and the border are going to be the themes out here. Also tomorrow, Gene, you've probably heard about this upcoming Reagan movie with Dennis Quaid. Well, there's going to be a screening of that for delegates tomorrow afternoon, so that's exciting. The rest of the country won't be able to see that for at least another month or two. So that's super exciting. In respect to but the bottom line is the theme here is going to be crime and the border. And as we know, especially the border, Gene, that's a big deal. Back to you.
Big deal indeed. Crime in the border. What do you think the solutions that's going to be presented tomorrow, with other than we got to build a wall?
Yeah, well, we have to address the influx of illegal immigrants that have come in under the Biden administration. I think one of the greatest arguments for border security is that it is directly tied to national security. There is no separation there.
It's true.
We don't know who is in our country. We have this entire new crime division, Biden's migrant crime, where you see murders happening in cities from people who have been sent over into the United States, kicked out of other countries, and we just don't know who is in our nation right now. And the other part of this is that there are a lot of people who are trafficked, thousands, if not millions, trafficked over the border, and the drug cartels are profiting off of this because of the Biden administration. Remember when Biden came into office on his first day, he signed a few dozen executive orders overturning.
Yeah, it was massive.
Yeah, and then he turns around and a few months ago blames Republicans for not passing his amnesty-ridden border bill through the U.S. Senate, and he said it's the Republicans' fault. And then after a few months, when this narrative starts to seep in that we do have to address the border issue and illegal immigration, and it was affecting both sides of the aisle, then he picks up his pen and says, well, maybe we need to do something about this, and puts in some specific measures that should have been done a long time ago. And I'm thinking, wait a second, he said it was the Republicans' fault. He couldn't do anything because the Republicans couldn't do it. But when it became a political issue too big for him to ignore, then he took some action and did something. So we're going to have to address the folks who are already over here. We're going to have to address the people who also have been overlooked trying to come over legally and go through the process, and have found it totally impossible to do so. So we need to overhaul our legal immigration system.
No doubt immigration reform has to occur. This is what Tony Suarez, if he was here, he'd be saying this. We need to fix that. But that does not, I think they're related, but they're not connected. But one thing, you don't have to have one without the other. We need to stop the flow right away.
Right.
And Joe Biden did do that, but the number of people coming across, it really was not I think that even that backfired, because there's so many other ways. Other numbers can come if you qualify for this or for that. They could still get across the border. So it wasn't. I don't think that worked either.
No, it didn't.
I think Americans saw right through that.
You have to plug the dike to make sure that we can control the tide, and then address domestically the influx of people who have come over into our country. And remember, the Democrats are not incentivized to do anything about this legislatively, because they want to create an entire new voting bloc, because they're losing the argument in battleground states and across the nation, and they have to do something about it. So why would they try to fix the illegal immigration issue?
That's just a quick look of what happened today. With me on set, David Barton. Hello, sir. Thank you for joining.
Of course.
Representing the state of Texas.
Got my uniform on, bro.
I appreciate that.
Easy to see us on the floor down there, all those hats moving.
I know, it is. It's great. Look, so much has gone on since Saturday. I want to talk about that, and we want to talk about the platforms that we touched on the other night. Give you an update there. But let me go to this clip right now. This is Jesse Waters takes the Dems. He's talking about the rhetoric that they've been hearing, what's going on now. Let me just show you this. We'll be right back. Watch.
Last night proved the American political climate's hotter than ever. And much to the left's dismay, the calls for violence are coming from inside their tent. The ugliness starts at the top. Just a few weeks ago, Biden sent an open invitation to the world, warning Trump's a threat to freedom, a threat to our democracy, and literally a threat to everything America stands for. Then he told his donors, it's time to put Trump in a bullseye. This is what Biden said at a rally in Michigan last week.
Donald Trump is a convicted criminal. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Trump is a threat to this nation. But Trump is even more dangerous now. No, I'm serious. He's unhinged. And he's snapped. He says if he loses, there will be a bloodbath. Trump said if he wins, he'll be a dictator on day one. He means it, folks. We're not going to let that happen. over my dead body will happen. America needs to wake up and realize that Trump and his mega republic is what they're trying to do. We're going to join them, we're going to engage them, and we're going to stop them.
The left spent years laying the groundwork for violence against Trump. Watch.
He is not only unfit, he is destructive to our democracy, and he has to be eliminated.
How dare he say the things he does? Of course I want to punch him in the face.
Right. Yes. Yes. I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
And with this kind of inspiration, I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And the donor class can't just sit back on the sidelines and say, oh, well, don't worry, this will all work itself out. They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
David, that's staggering when you hear it. I have forgotten a lot of those quotes, but when you see them all back to back, I mean, this is something the conservative side, we would never even joke about. No one would ever say that.
And if we did, they'd call us a task for it.
Yeah, that's right. So when we see this, I mean, and I'm not saying everybody wanted Donald Trump shot. That's not what I'm saying. However, I'm saying the rhetoric and what Jesse was showing there, this is what they want to take him out to some degree. They want to get rid of Donald Trump.
I tell you, what I've heard since the attempted assassination and what's happening from tonight through Thursday here has given me great optimism. We're told in the scriptures, Romans 12:21, you overcome the evil with the good.
Right.
And I loved when just a few weeks ago Trump was asked, all this lawsuit, the Lawfare, what are you going to do to retaliate? He said, I'm not going to retaliate. I'm going to do better for America. That's the best revenge, is letting everybody be blessed.
That's right.
And so at this point, he has gone back and rewritten his speech for Thursday night, and it's not going to be what he was going to say. It's going to be, we've got to have unity, people. He's going to call the nation to unity, and that is the right response when there's such division. I've heard both sides saying this could end in a civil war, and that's not the rhetoric any of us want in America.
No.
And so if he can de-escalate that and bring that back to sanity, and there's just so many people, we agree on so many things, but if you're only going to focus on the negatives, it's going to be really tough.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. All right, so let's talk about the actual event itself from Saturday. And I mentioned this at the top there. The last shooting we had was March of 1981 with President Reagan. Let's go back there. There's no internet. Mm-hmm. There was no cell phones, definitely no camera phones. And yet there was a lot of photos around that because photographers were everywhere. Now all of the footage is already coming in. We're seeing different angles. We're seeing what happened. So I think it's right for the American. I want to address this directly to you watching at home. It's right to question. It's okay to question what happens. Now, we're not going to make accusations, and we're not going to say somebody's doing something until we know for sure. However, we need to question. This is what makes America different in a lot of ways, is that we do question. We do stand up. That's why we have rights, the freedom of speech. You can stand up and say, I don't agree with that. So that's inherent to being an American. So that's okay. And we just don't take it further than that. But we need to understand what really happened on that day, that afternoon, because it's not looking good. Let me show you this. This is, listen to what of all people, watch MSNBC's clip about the snipers on that day. Watch.
New information for you. A senior Secret Service source familiar with the planning of yesterday's event tells NBC News that the roof where the shooter was located was a well-known, high-priority vulnerability. It was identified just the day before during a security walkthrough. We've also just learned that there were 2 counter-sniper teams on site and that the counter-sniper did not need approval to shoot. One source telling NBC News that prior protocols were not followed. The FBI now says the alleged shooter, 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, appears to have acted alone.
It appears to acted alone. Now, and we didn't even have time to pull out all the footage. I mean, there's so much stuff out there. Of course, why was there a ladder against this barn? People saw it. The people, they're the ones that reported it. Hey, come over here. Look, there's a guy up there with a gun. And for not just a couple minutes, for sustained amount of time, he was actually on the barn. You know, and I don't care what you're doing, but if you're at a presidential candidate's campaign rally with an AR on the roof, laying down, pointing that direction, I'm thinking there's some nefarious things that are about to happen.
Well, the people that went up on the roof to confront him, he chased them off with the gun.
Yeah.
That should have been enough.
That should have been enough.
And watching the presidential snipers, as a shooter, I was intrigued with the fact that the guy that I saw for several seconds focused on the target before he shot, he was not looking for other targets. He had found his target, he was on it, but he didn't shoot. And so there was that thing, does he have to have permission, does he not have to have permission? And we've heard both sides of that.
We have.
But there is no question of mine, he had that target acquired, he was on it, he was spot on it. Once he saw the flash going out the muzzle, then he took the target out. But could he have done so earlier? You know, there's a lot of questions that go with that. And there's also the questions of why the White House would not approve more security, because that's where one of the security people would have been, was right there where that shooter was, if they'd had more security. And I think that's going to happen now. But there's a lot of questions.
Gateway Pundit reports today that the normal Secret Service was at a Jill Biden event that day as well, so that they did have temporary replacements, according to the Gateway Pundit. So we've got, there's just so many questions, and we're not going to know the answer. So I want to urge everybody watching FlashPoint Army, don't make leaps in judgment yet.
That's right.
We just need to continue to, let's amass what we're seeing. Don't go on social media and make a big deal about something we don't have all the facts on yet, all right? And so, listen, speaking of social media, I need you to go share this. We're going to be here. Let me tell you this. We're going to be here every night this week, and we're working on Wednesday. Don't know if we'll be able to work that out, but Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday night will be from here. And I want to show you exactly what's been happening here. Now, it's been our first day. This has kind of been a ramp-up day, and we're going to talk about the whole platform thing. But it's, you know, coming into this, David, I noticed this morning was a bit more somber. There was, you know, of course, with what had happened with President Trump on Saturday, there was a different atmosphere. Did you sense that, or was that just me?
I didn't sense a particularly different atmosphere. It was maybe a little suppressed from what it was, but they got business out of the way real quick. They made sure that Trump is the nominee. They made sure JD Vance is the vice president. They got that done. That took most of the afternoon, was just doing the count and letting all the states have the roll call. So I didn't notice anything particular. It's just that when you get into a time like that where there's so much downtime for the audience, it gets a little quiet, a little depressed. But in the buzz we had with other groups and other coming over on the buses, and all the buses came in, dozens of buses, didn't seem to be depressed in that. As a matter of fact, it seemed to be the other side, that it was a very God-centered providential event that had happened with the assassination attempt. And that's what most people were talking about, is what happens now. Because the whole climate has changed. You know, just for me specifically on that assassination event, Cheryl and I have been recently listening to an audiobook from 30 years ago. If you remember Frank Peretti and This Present Darkness.
That's right.
And so, you know, you get a glimpse into that spiritual world of the angels. And it's like, and again, as a shooter, Trump, it's like an angel did that to him when he was standing there, because he doesn't normally turn his head like that, and it went so fast. And where it hit the top of his ear, that shooter had an ear hole shot. It was ear hole to ear hole, and if he had not done that, it wouldn't have got the top of the ear. And I mean, and so we were talking about how miraculous that was, that it happened so fast. At an instant, the sniper could not change his shot, couldn't adjust because Trump moved so quick. Everything about it just speaks providential. And so our questions were, as delegates, you know, when you have a somewhat confident, arrogant kind of a person, the question becomes, you respond one of two ways. You're either saying, I'm bulletproof, nothing hurts me.
Right.
Or you say, this was God. And everything we're seeing now shows the humble side, that this was a God deal, what he tweeted, what he's doing at the speech, everything about it. So basically, from the delegate kind of standpoint, we were really pretty encouraged about it, but it was a somber time in that sense, but I don't think it was kind of depressed in that way.
No, I agree. I mean, maybe it's, I felt, maybe it's just me, sensing the gravity of what we've just walked.
That's right.
As a nation. All right, let me show you this from Dan Bongino talking about, since he was Secret Service, I want you to see this. Watch.
Former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino joins me now. Is this gross incompetence, or is it something even more scary that we can't even think about?
No, it's gross incompetence. I mean, how do you think about it, right? The counter sniper team, they train out, the Secret Service counter sniper team, obviously they're to mitigate a sniper threat. They train out to 1,000 yards. So we're talking about, say it was 200 yards. It was actually less than that where this shooter was, right? You're talking about a fraction of what they're trained at. They're also trained to spot guys in ghillie suits, cracked open windows.
Right.
He's on a white roof in broad daylight.
He's on a white roof.
Now, again, it'd be easy for me to say, oh, well, let's not get into Monday morning quarterbacking. Bro, it's not a freaking football game. It's the President of the United States' life. The Secret Service has one job. Well, outside of counterfeiting and protection, it is one job. You keep the body alive no matter what. They came within a millimeter of this guy losing his life.
Yeah, it's staggering what happened. All right, so we're going to continue to watch this. We'll continue to report about it. And you can stay in touch with Victory News every day. And, of course, on FlashPoint, we will continue to push for the truth, as I know that's what we all want to know, the truth. But, like David was saying, thank God President Trump is okay. And I did notice a distinct giving honor to where honor was due.
Yeah.
Thank you, God, for protecting me, and more or less of what he said in his tweet. All right, let me show you. Mike is ready? All right, so we're going to go over to the Fiserv Arena. That's another arena that's close here where the big convention floor is, and our very own Mike Garofalo is over there live right now. Mike, tell us what's going on.
Gene, you can feel the momentum building here in the Fiserv Arena. Initially, we were not expecting to learn about Donald Trump's vice presidential running mate until at least tomorrow, but due to Saturday's assassination attempt, well, that changed. And this afternoon, the former president posted on social media that he had chosen as his running mate the senator from Ohio, as we know, but no one was disappointed. In fact, everybody I spoke to was pretty excited about the choice. And Edward Young, that is from New Jersey, was supposed to be in the VP section at Donald Trump's Butler, Pennsylvania rally when the assassin tried to take aim at the 45th president and possibly the 47th president of the United States. And this is what he had to say.
So I said, some time ago, that once the Democrats fail at everything, they're going to try to assassinate him. But, Donald Trump, I believe, is protected by angels. I believe Donald Trump was sent by God to preserve Abraham Lincoln's promise that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people will not perish from the face of this earth. I believe he's heaven sent, a merciful Lord that has taken pity on a sinful nation, given us a chance.
Now, Ohio Senator JD Vance, Donald Trump's pick, did make an appearance here at the Fiserv Forum earlier this afternoon, but did not speak from the podium. We were here when he showed up. Tonight's speakers include Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin and South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, just to name two of many. So the bottom line, Gene, is the energy here is just boosting, and the announcement of the vice presidential choice for Donald Trump just gave the energy that much more oomph here in the arena. Back to you.
Thanks. Thank you, Mike. David, let me go to you on this. Announcing JD Vance today, I was kind of surprised that it was also almost anticlimactic today. I was expecting maybe later in the week, but to make the announcement today, do you think there was the reason for that to maybe get a big
I think it's good to have the suspense gone and have the team together, because now for the rest of the week you're talking the team. You know who the team is,
right?
And so you're not wondering who the other part of the team is. So I think it was a very good decision to do that early on, get that out of the way, knock it out, and then go forward with, now here's what we're going to do if we get the chance. So I think it was a good choice.
All right, so a lot of people don't know about JD Vance. I didn't ask you to talk about this, but can you kind of give everybody a 30,000 altitude view of who he is?
Yeah, he's going to be a name that a lot of Americans don't know. He's a freshman U.S. Senator from Ohio, not well known by a lot of folks, but he's military background. He's grounded. He's a traditionalist. It's interesting with his faith journey. He's still in the middle of it, and so he's wanting to get closer to God, and just started this last year attending church on a regular basis. So he's moving in that direction, but he's always been a traditionalist. He's been a pro-God guy, pro-American guy. What makes him a little different is he's an America first guy in the sense that I don't care about Ukraine. Let's take care of America first. You know, Ukraine, we'll get to that later. So he wants to focus more on what's going in America first, and then after we get that taken care of, now we'll take care of the rest of the world if we're going to do that. So he is limited in that sense. He's a good guy. He's going to be really good in the Midwest states on you might kind of say grassroots Midwesterners that are just business guys. They're farmers. He's the common man. And what he and his wife have done, the film they put out in the book they did, it's directed at that common average person. And he is a great spokesman for the average American in so many ways. So with his military background, his growing faith background, his votes have been good, all the traditional things that we would want as Christian conservatives, as limited government Republicans. He's been going to all of that. So he's a good choice.
Good choice. All right. When we'll hear, I'm sure he will address the convention here later on in the week as time gets closer. All right, let's go back to before Saturday. And we were talking last Thursday on what had happened with the platform. And so let's kind of recap what really happened. And you've been on the platform committee for the RNC. So first off, Dave, tell us how it normally would go when you meet to decide what's in the platform.
What happens is every state sends 2 delegates to the platform committee, and we get there a week early and we write the platform for the next 4 years, what Republicans believe. And so you're pulling in Republicans from every state, and some are the liberal states, some are the conservative states. So work together usually 5 days, usually 3 days on subcommittees. So there's one on national defense, there's one on family issues, there's one on economics, there's six subcommittees. And then after 3 days of subcommittee work, we bring what each subcommittee is taken and put it together and write the whole platform. And so it's about 2 days of voting. So what usually is a 5-day process, they announced this time would be a 2-day process. We go, wow, that's interesting, because usually in 5 days we're very not. It's not a done deal. It's usually, we have to work 10, 12 hours to get it done. So how are you going to do it in 2? And then when we got there, it actually turned to about 35 minutes is what it was. So it was well under an hour. And what happened was the campaign wrote the platform they wanted as their agenda for America. So it set forth 20 points up front, here's what we're after, and 57 action items, here's what we're going to do. And so it went through specificity on border, went through specificity on economics, on military, and all sorts of things. And so that was the campaign, that was their agenda list is what it amounted to. And that was just voted in as the platform, which is unusual because it usually, here's what we as Republicans believe. And this document says, here's what the president's going to do. And so that's a real shift from decades of
So
policy.
it became a campaign document.
It is.
The platform. And what now it's adopted. So the process of this, I mean, I know like many people watching that have heard about this, it was disappointing, the relaxed move to on pro-life. And, of course, in traditional marriage. These are some of the standards with the Republican Party coming up now. And it seems like...
And Israel as well, to add
and Israel,
yeah.
yes. Thank you for reminding me. So these are major issues to, especially our guys, FlashPoint Army. I mean, this is what what we stand on. So how do we handle, and I know we talked about this, I just feel like it's such a big deal that we need to talk about it again. How do we handle this going forward? Yes, there is not a lot of choices here when it comes to if you have a conservative outlook or biblical-based values or not. So that's one thing, but how do we handle this going forward?
Well, what you have to remember is that it doesn't change what we believe. Right. And what we individually believe, and those of us who work around this, it hasn't changed our beliefs at all. And I'll take, for example, with President Trump, what he did with Israel 4 years ago when he was president was remarkable. The Abraham Accords, et cetera, moving the embassy to Jerusalem. He has gotten better since then because he was a 2-state solution guy then. He's moved to a 1-state solution guy now. And he's also into none of this West Bank stuff. Let's do Judea and Samaria, the biblical language. So he's much better in Israel, but none of that shows up in the platform. So it doesn't mean that he's weakened his positions. Maybe
it's good.
Maybe on abortion, some, because he said, well, the Supreme Court gave it to the states, leave it there. Well, no, we think it's an inalienable right. If you're going to say that life, the inalienable right, belongs to states, then we're back to saying slavery belongs to states. Liberty should have been an inalienable right. So, but at this point, it's not. He can't do anything different than what he's got except keep giving us good judges. So you look at what he did before. On the life issue, man, he's the most pro-life president we had. He's the only one to ever do the March for Life. What he did with the judges, really good. I don't expect any of that to change. What it's done is it's kind of put a damper on those that talk about it, but it doesn't change what I believe, doesn't change what he's going to do. So I wouldn't be discouraged over it.
Well, and that's the key point. I'm glad you brought it up, because I have heard it said, well, there's a lot of people that are just not going to vote because they don't like the platform. Don't make that mistake. Please don't make that mistake, because that is a vote for the other side. Whichever way you were going to vote, you just voted for the other way now.
That's right.
And that's why we can't. And Kenneth Copeland's the one that said your vote is your seed. If you how you believe, if it comes out in your vote, it's your biblical right to vote that we have here in America.
Can I jump into that just for a second?
Sure.
I want to get heavy-handed just for a minute.
Come on, do
because
it.
Just like we've got a God of love, we have a God of judgment.
There we do.
And
yes.
he is a God of love, but he does have a heaven and a hell, and he will use both of those. And that's very clear all through the scriptures. Revelation 21, read it, there's no question. And so Paul even said, knowing therefore the wrath of God, I persuade men. Part of the reason I persuade people is I understand the reality of eternal judgment. Founding fathers, I think, got it right, because they said, everything we have comes from God, we'll answer to him for it. So when he says, I gave you your kids, what'd you do with that? We'll have to account. I gave you your business, I gave you your wife, I gave you your vote. What'd you do with that? Yeah, and if we say, I didn't do nothing, I don't want to stand in front of God and say, I gave you a choice, right. and so I hope from the fear of God, Christians that say, I'm not going to vote, no, that's not your option. Well, I don't like either one of them. It doesn't matter. Duty is ours, results are God's, what John Quincy Adams said. You take that vote and you do something with it. It is your seed, and you will answer to God for whether you did nothing with it. Right. And if you doubt that, just look at Luke 14, Matthew 25. Those two who did nothing with what they were given by God, they're the dudes who got in trouble, and we don't want to be in that position. So that's my heavy-handed thing to say.
Good.
As Christians, you cannot sit it out. That's not an option.
No option.
There is no option.
There is no option. And let me say this. Pastor George Pearson's here, who's CEO, who was with us the other night. He will be doing a series on both platforms that he does every election cycle, and it's something we will make sure that you get a link to. If you don't watch the service live, you will have a link to it, and that'll be something you can share with your friends as well. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, so much more from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We'll check back in with Mike over in the arena, and we'll bring in Luke Ball, too. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Calling all believers and patriots, it's time to take our stand for our Lord and this great nation. The FlashPoint Army is coming home to Fort Worth, Texas, Sunday, July 28th at the Hilton Fort Worth. Join Gene Bailey, Hank Kuhneman, Dutch Sheets, Lou Engle, and Jenny Donnelly for a rallying time of teaching and so much more. You do not want to miss this event. Join us July 28th at the Hilton Fort Worth. Register today at 2024flashpoint.live.
It's breathtaking. A tsunami of darkness threatens to wash away all we hold dear if we don't act now. In Killing America, turning the tide on the tsunami of darkness, Gene and Terry Bailey bring hope, help, and chart a course that leads to America's restoration and renewal. Don't wait. Get your copy at killingamericabook.com and counter the tsunami of darkness with a deluge of everlasting light.
My parents raised me right. I can see that more and more every single day. My generation needs to know that it's okay to go against the mainstream. I choose righteousness.
I love this country so much that I'd bled for it. And now that I'm back home, I can see the fight isn't over. The future of this great nation hangs in the balance, and I won't stand by.
I live in the land of opportunity, and I want to keep it that way. I'll show people that freedom is what makes us thrive. I can be that example.
I won't let the world have my grandchildren if I have anything to say about it. The next generation needs a real example of strength. I'll be that.
I am the FlashPoint Army.
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 Welcome back to the second half, live from Milwaukee at the RNC. So, of course, you see in the shot there, I got Luke Ball. Luke, welcome.
Thanks,
You morphed from David Barton to Luke Ball.
It's quite a downgrade. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, you know, budget cut. Anyway, all right, I want to talk to you more about this whole electoral process and what we're seeing here. But before I do that, this morning I sat down with our good friend Floyd Brown, and I talked about what the Joe Biden campaign was talking about this morning, and why we're not really hearing a whole lot. Watch. All right, so let's talk about the Dems, because you brought that up. Nothing from the Biden camp not much discussion about his fit to be the candidate.
So that's all ended. So, all of that ended.
What do you mean it's ended? What is
it's ended. So the Democratic Party cares only about one thing, and that's beating Donald Trump. And what they realized is after Saturday, no candidate can beat him. They knew Joe Biden couldn't beat him, but they were hoping that they could put Michelle Obama or, Gretchen Whitmer or Governor Newsom up and somehow, win at the last minute. But now all the dynamics have changed. Donald Trump is going to be elected president of this country. And so they're just going to let Biden take the loss. Yeah. And then slouch off into history. They don't want to take one of their future leaders and kill their career
by losing
right now by losing to Donald Trump. So unless he dies, he's going to be the nominee and he's going to be their candidate.
All right. So you heard Floyd there, Luke, talking about, which I thought was an interesting perspective. After. There was that moment when you see Trump after his blood in his face, fist in the air, and start mouthing the words "fight, fight, fight," and you're like, "Oh wow, there's that's like a marker of his political life there of what happened." And so, obviously, almost immediately, Elon Musk was one of the first ones that came out and said, "I endorse President Trump for re-election." So there's this great groundswell of support because of what he went through. I think there are a lot of people on the fence, and I think that pushed them over the side. On the other side of this, you've got the Biden camp not saying anything. So I want to position the same question to you. Why is it that we're not seeing that? And do you agree? Do you think they're just like, whoever they put up there is going to be a failure next to Trump at this point?
Two things. Number one, there have been a few times during this campaign where I've been like, this is where we've won the election. When the document raid at Mar-a-Lago happened, the debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and then this assassination attempt against Donald Trump. And I just think every time this happens, he continues to solidify that Republican base, which is crucial because there was a brutal primary battle back and forth. And I believe that we're in that healing process now. And now that we have this base together, we can go against the Democrats who are completely fractured right now. And you asked why the Biden camp has been so silent about this. They can't go out and say anything on it because they literally have a party that has said for years he is a fascist, he's like Hitler, he's like a terrorist, all of these horrible things. Well, what do you do to terrorists and people like that? Right. Now they've got this violent response against Donald Trump, and they can't go out there and defend that. Joe Biden literally said we want to put Donald Trump in the bullseye. Had to go and pull those remarks down and apologize. He's trying to explain it away right now. So they'd have to go and explain why their party has been, for the last few years, so consistent in their messaging that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy rather than just their political opponent, and now have to justify this action against their remarks.
All right, so do you agree with Floyd there that he's probably much just going to ride it out to the election?
Joe Biden?
From the Democrat, if that's your party. All right, let's revisit what he said. And of course, if he's with us and everything, obviously, but almost anybody you put up next to Trump is a loser.
Yeah.
And so it's like, do you trot out your racehorse, your one, whoever that might be, in the background that you go, okay, we want you to go against that, knowing full well he's not going to, or she is not going to get it.
Yeah.
Or do you just let Joe take the hit? Hopefully he rides it out and
I don't think many people are rushing to Joe Biden's defense right now because they're
No.
scared to death of how he's going to do when it comes to the convention and how it comes to the general election time. There's a problem within the Democrat Party. If they don't want Joe Biden, they need to do something about it very quickly. If time has not already run out, it is running out right now. And you can't coalesce behind an alternative to an incumbent that will not give up the White House. He is in complete control right now of this
And I think that's the
office.
thing that most people, and myself included, you kind of forget that.
Yeah.
You know, like, wait a minute. As long as he says he's running.
Correct.
He's running.
As much as we say he is out of control, he doesn't know what's going on. If he is in control of the incumbency and he is in the White House and won't give that up, then he is in total control of the Democrat Party. So they're riding with Biden, and they may be going off a cliff, but they're in it for the long haul.
Wow. I have all, where's Rick Green? Because this is where Rick and I may have to eat the crow after all. Because my other thought is it's a possibility that now, knowing what's going to happen, and this is just, I don't have any inside information, so don't go to press with this.
Just keep it between us.
Just between us.
It's just us that's
just
here.
us, you and me. And
I don't want to cut you off, but when you said that, I had that thought where it's like, you're not eating crow. I think that you're like, we can't underestimate our opponent.
Yeah.
There's no way the Democrats would be so dumb as to put up a candidate like this and hang on to him through the whole election.
Yeah.
But were they deceived? Maybe. We'll have to see. I don't know. I think that's what it was.
Okay, so let's take this. Here's a scenario.
Okay.
Tell me from your experience how well you think this could be. Okay, we know it's kind of a shot in the dark at this point. It really is. The country's was already so far behind him. We post his mug, we leak his mug shot, and it winds up on coffee mugs and T-shirts around the country, and galvanizes even more people. So, what if 25th Amendment gets invoked, and he steps away, or God forbid something else happened, but let's say he steps down.
Yeah.
Kamala has the opportunity. Now, I'm not thinking about what I want. I'm thinking, what could happen if they said, okay, Kamala, this is your shot. You'll be the first black female president for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to win, but you at least walk out with that moniker. You can say that you were that person.
There is that what if, and I think she has quietly been preparing for a while because she knew what Joe Biden was like behind the scenes, and she had to know that once they trotted him out in front of this total free-for-all debate where they didn't have his handlers around him for the 90 minutes or however long the debate went, that the whole world would see what the Biden camp has been hiding from everyone as much as they possibly could have, that Joe Biden's cognitive decline is very, very bad. And so she was part of this major cover-up. And I think that politically she says, I just got to go out there and defend the guy. And then when I get drug into this because the American people in my party have called upon me to assume the mantle, then I will still have been the loyal ally and won't be overlooked and things like that. So I think there's a lot of political things at play. Now, the other part of this, too, is that she has to be so careful. I did see a report the other day where it's like they've quietly been preparing for whatever might happen at any given time to assume it. But she also cannot go out there and start leaking here and there and stepping on toes that she's trying to prepare or get ready, because then that goes against the whole narrative that Joe Biden is not the candidate that we need. And then, quite frankly, she could be on the chopping block, maybe not necessarily from the ticket, but if she would go into another administration, perhaps in their hypothetical mind with Joe Biden in the next 4 years, she would be ousted from everything possible. She would politically be a dead horse.
Yeah, she would be. It's, I hate to say it, it really is grab your popcorn. And because
and we're like 3.5 months out.
We're still 3.5 months out, and we've got a lot that's going to happen. And of course, the Democrat convention is just come around the corner in July. And
but just like the excuses that the White House trotted out for Joe Biden's performance. I was thinking about this the other day. Like, they said he had a cold. God forbid China bombs us during flu season, right? And then they said he just had a bad night. Well, this is not American Idol. This is the U.S. presidency. They said he had jet lag. There are people who are, people are cashing in their sky miles at that point. They're not still suffering from jet lag. I mean, the excuses that they continue to try to put up in front of the American people. And it's interesting from a communication standpoint, which is my background, that the Democrats have always had a free pass. The Democrats can go out there and
That's
say whatever
true.
they want. The media doesn't question them on anything. And now all the Republican communicators are like, well, the Democrats are now having to do actual press work, and they're quite entertained by the whole concept because they've never had this type of scrutiny before.
All right, so let's say if you were your communication strategy, what would be the best path forward? It almost seems like
for Joe,
for Joe, but I think really, I don't know if President Trump needs to do one more rally. He could just show up with a bandage on his ear, and everybody's going to go, man, that's my guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have never put myself in the position of Joe Biden's handlers, so I would probably right off the bat start pulling him back, as they have done over the last year, from any possible circumstance where it is not scripted, where it is not an opportunity for him to be challenged on anything, and where he's not beside split screen Donald Trump. These debates, I mean, they'd have to come up with some excuse. They'd have to have some controlled town halls, give him the most controlled room temperature style environment they possibly could. And so, like, just my initial thoughts saying that, what have we seen over the last 3-4 years? That exact thing. So as his mental decline had become more apparent, because you put up Joe Biden from 2024 and 2020, he was already starting to slip in 2020.
Yeah.
And you know what? Let's pray for Joe Biden for that, because it is a serious health concern and whatever. But this is the republic. This is our constitutional republic. This is our government. We need to make sure that when somebody gets called at 3 a.m., that they're not hitting the life alert button or the nuclear button. We want to make sure that they are in complete control of what's going to be happening, and that they understand the gravity of the situations that they're presented with at a moment's notice. And Joe Biden cannot handle that right now.
All right. It was Luke Ball. He said life alert. Okay. Let me show you this. CNN is actually... they weren't happy with Joe's comments after the shooting. Watch.
Here's where I thought it was lacking. He said the political rhetoric's gotten too hot, and we got to cool it down. And what I wanted him to say was, and you know what, that means me too. Donald Trump is a genuine threat to this nation. He's a threat to our freedom. He's a threat to our democracy. He's literally a threat to everything America stands for. And a few days later, it's time to put Donald Trump in the bullseye. Now, if the President of the United States had said, I bear some responsibility here, and I'm going to do my part, this would have been a home run. He didn't do that. Instead, he spread it all around, which I guess is as far as he's willing to go. But let me tell you how Republicans are going to take that. They're going to take that as a president who has repeatedly said, I want to heal the soul of the nation, and the buck stops here, but with an unwillingness to acknowledge some of the things that he has said to bring us to a place that he says we're in.
All right, so, Luke, that's CNN.
Yeah. Well, remember what the Democrats were saying a few years ago, that not just was Donald Trump the threat to democracy, but Republicans were the party of the insurrectionists and the violent protests and all of these things. Forget about the 2020 Democrat riots that burned our cities, or the BLM riots, or anything that was going on there. Yeah. You look to Antifa. Don't look at any of that. But it's the Republicans that are the party of violence and this whole situation that they put us in. And Joe Biden was supposed to come in and be the uniter in chief. He was supposed to bring the country together. And then he goes out there and holds press conferences with red lights and U.S. Marines, and he's pounding his fists and screaming at the cameras for a few minutes. That's not unifying at all. And I will also point out, I've not heard a very unifying message from Joe Biden most recently, or the Joe Biden camp, or even talking points on that. And it is because he is trying to strike this divide, and he thought it was going to work, but now it is coming back to hit him. And that is not a great situation for him to be in. And even with the Republicans and them accusing us of all that stuff, they had to bring in these Hollywood producers to orchestrate the January 6th committee, not put any actual Republicans on the committee, and have a Hollywood theatrical performance for the American people, just to try to persuade them during the midterms that the Republicans were not in control of their party. They're bad. They're awful. And the final thing I'll say is, it's a little humorous now that the Democrats were saying Republicans are disarray when we were having some leadership battles in the House of Representatives. And now, as they say in a TV show I watch, How the Turntables, and they've completely flipped it all around, and now it's the Democrats who have no leader and have no party right now.
All right. Since wow, show's flown by. Let's talk about the case. As if there's nothing else to talk about, Judge Cannon, the case gets basically thrown out because of the standing of Jack Smith. What do you think happens from here with that?
I think we need.
He's already said he's going to appeal.
Right.
So what do you think what happens?
Well, they're going to draw out the lawfare, no doubt. I think we have to remember how we got here and zoom out and think back to just exactly what the situation was when everything went down. Because once they found out that Donald Trump had documents or whatever, or accused him of having this at Mar-a-Lago, and they raided Mar-a-Lago, the Biden camp leaped on this. They were like, this is our thing. We're going to go after this really hard. And then turns out Joe Biden apparently has documents in his garage beside his Corvette. And he did not have unilateral authority at any time to declassify these documents because they were not from when he was president. They were from when he was vice president or in the U.S.
VP
Senate.
has no authority.
Exactly. And he's been in office for a long time. They probably found General Cornwallis's troop movements in those documents. And yet when Donald Trump is accused of it, they send Miami SWAT to go in through the front door. You know, they'd have done that if he had kept a library book out from the Library of Congress too long. And then what was the double standard in addition to that from the National Archives and Records Administration? With Donald Trump, they're like, send in the SWAT team. But with everyone else, they send out basically a casting call to all former members all former presidents and vice presidents of the United States, saying to check between your couch cushions and see if you've got any classified documents to return. Like George W. Bush is going to go to his chest of drawers and find some letter from Saddam Hussein or something like that.
Here, I got one.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of like the double standard was so drastic and stark. They thought this was their best case. But in my mind, from a communication standpoint, it was the greatest example of the two-tiered justice system that we had in America, because you had two people doing the exact same thing. One was let go because he was a well-intentioned old man, and the other one was prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law until Judge Cannon threw it out.
Well, it's interesting to watch. You just never know when you wake up tomorrow what you'll find.
Yep.
All right, so... all right, well, and we're going to continue to track everything here. Listen, I want to take a minute and say thank you, guys. Thank you for sending us here to Milwaukee. I mean, we've got the team here. We are in, I think this may be a record-setting to do a live show in a booth that's 10 by 20. These guys have done it. We got the Fort Worth crew is there helping, and, of course, everybody here. So a big attaboys and attagirls to everybody involved here. This is a big deal, and it's all because you guys support FlashPoint and the Victory Channel, and you send us here. So thank you for that. If you want to be a part of doing that, listen, there is no lack of vision with FlashPoint. There's no, I mean, we sit around at lunch and come up with things we'd like to see happen and things we'd like to do. That's not a problem. The only thing keeping that back is getting the funds behind it to make it happen, and making sure it's something that really you need to see or we need to do that keeps in line with the vision of FlashPoint. So if you want to be a part, it's very simple. You can be a part by text to give. Text to 36609, the code FLASH and the dollar amount. That's the most immediate way you can help us. Thank you for that. These are all tax-deductible gifts. You can write a check. If you want to do that, just make it out to FlashPoint. Write FlashPoint on the check. Send it to Fort Worth, Texas, 76192. That's all the address you need. We'll get it that way. Of course, you can go to the website, govictory.com/FPGive, and you can make your tax-deductible donation there. And, of course, you can pick up the phone and call 877-281-6297, where we have operators and prayer ministers there that can pray with you and help you as well. Make your donation there. Thank you for what you're doing. A special thanks, of course, to Kenneth Copeland and the whole team, George and Terry Pearsons, for that. We get to do this. We get to bring this to you week after week, day after day. This is so important to America. It's important to you. I know it's important to you. I meet you all over the place. Luke meets you, and in Ohio was the last week, in the airports. Yeah. We run into people. We ran into some of the police officers here outside. Hey, FlashPoint. Yeah, I watched that. FlashPoint
really?
Army. Yeah, so we love you. We love that you tell us that you're doing that. I've caught a few uncanceled T-shirts out there, so I know who you are. I know you are. I'm watching you. So thank you for doing it, and thank you for helping us continue to expand FlashPoint, its reach, and be a part of the Victory Channel. Now, let's talk about coming up is Fort Worth. There's only a few seats left in the VIP. I think we're less than 20 seats left. We expanded it. Now we're almost sold out of that. I cannot expand it anymore. So if you want your copy, you can get that. And as well, come to be a part of FlashPoint Fort Worth. Now, this is a very different. Let me tell you who's going to be there. Dutch Sheets will be there, Pastor Hank Kuhneman, and, of course, Lou Engle and Jenny Donnelly. Yes, we're going to talk about what's happening with the women. But this is a very, very unique event because we have a lot of ground to cover, and we're going to talk about your role as a believer. What does that mean? What is God doing in the nation? We talk about revival all the time here. We need revival. But, Luke, if we don't have Reformation, revival has no point.
Absolutely.
Other than we had a good meeting. So we want the good meetings or whatever, however that works, and God chooses to do that. But we want to turn that around and get that planted in you so that then you can take that out to your world and your place, where no matter where you live. And if anything we've learned, look at JD Vance's family. Like you said, Luke, his upbringing, I bet he never thought this was even a possibility.
No.
And so he goes from his upbringing and being a Marine, and then suddenly he's a running mate with Donald Trump. I mean,
those are the best stories too. The ones where they have to struggle through something. They feel like they're at their lowest point. They feel like they're never going to be able to get ahead. And yet God appoints people to positions that they never thought they'd be in. And when I look at the Bible through a political lens, I mean, Joseph went from the prison house to the penthouse. It was essentially vice president in Egypt. I mean, Esther was pulled out of her comfort zone and drawn into a situation she didn't want to be in, but God used her to save the Jewish people. David, Daniel, all of these people, if you look at it, it's like these are positions in government, and these are political positions, and God orchestrated this situation to happen so that his people could flourish or thrive, or that his story would be told and that he would be glorified in all of it. We just simply don't know what God is going to do.
No, we don't. But I know we're excited to be on the trip. You can be riding with Biden, or we're gonna stay with Jesus on this one and see what he wants to do. Let me pray real quick before we go off the air. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for everyone here. Thank you for the safety of all the attendees. Thank you for the safety of the crew and all the people that are here, the delegates. Father, I thank you that your will be done. Thank you for protecting President Trump last Saturday. Thank you for a quick healing in his ear. Let there be no residual effects. And Lord, we pray for Joe Biden that you do what you need to do. We invoke the justice of God in this situation. We decree it to be so in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of what FlashPoint is doing. Listen, tomorrow we've got so much. Have you got any updates? Do you know what's going to happen tomorrow?
Not too much, no. They're putting out a lot of the speakers and schedule, and you can go look it up. But I think enthusiasm is going to carry through the entire week. Today was the splash point. We officially nominated Donald Trump. We found out who the vice president was. Now we buckled down on the agenda.
So did you say Splash Point?
Splash Point. That's my new show. FlashPoint. Catch it in between the commercial breaks of FlashPoint.
So that's the FlashPoint cruise.
Oh, okay.
That's what it's
FlashPoint. I'm down for it. Let's go.
That's right. No, we don't have a cruise plan, but we would like to have one. So thank you for being a part every week right here on FlashPoint. Listen, watch us on Rumble. We're streaming the event, what's happening, on our Rumble channel. Just go to rumble.com/FlashPoint. You can watch what's happening. They've given us permission to do that. Thank him for it, and you can watch during the day. Keep it on all day. And, of course, we'll be coming back here live tomorrow night. Tuesday night, FlashPoint from the RNC in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Thank you, America, for being a part of us. FlashPoint Army. We'll see you tomorrow night.